Okay, this is another lesson I'm doing, and this one is going to talk about not a true Austrian concept, but I'm going to put out another video of this is in the news now and why I want to talk about this. But this is a generic video explaining school vouchers. Okay, now I want to start out and say that school vouchers are definitely not a true Austrian idea, and even libertarians are in debate about whether it's a true libertarian idea. Though most libertarians end up supporting school vouchers anyway. So again, why am I talking about this if it's not a true Austrian idea? Well, I'm going to take a little view of the Chicago school economist Milton Friedman when he was asked about how he supported the Federal Reserve once, and he essentially stated that while he hated the Federal Reserve, he was speaking about how it should be run based on the idea that we would not be able to destroy it. And I hope to God we destroy it, and I'm sure he hoped to God too that we could destroy it. But he was talking about if we couldn't destroy it, this is how it should be run. So this is what I'm talking about now. I would love to dismantle public education. I think schools would be much, much better off if they were run by private entrepreneurs who founded schools through investment and allowed more freedom for the students to have their own curriculum, and they would have to cater to the parents and make the educational experience better for the students. But I'm making this video on the grounds that unfortunately the government will still be involved in education, and that this is how we should run it as long as the government is involved. And again, this is coming from a guy who plans on being a high school teacher one day, that I hate public schools. So yeah. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about the voucher system. Now, most people have heard about what school vouchers are, and like in another video I'm going to put out after this on the DC school voucher program. Most people have heard of them, but they might not know what they are. They see all the time the advertisements put out by those lovely teachers unions condemning them and why we shouldn't have them. So let me explain easily what a voucher is. They were advocated by libertarians like Milton Friedman as a way for students to have educational freedom. Everyone knows now that if you want to send your child to school, you really have two choices. You can go to the public school that you live by, that you're going to be paying for through property taxes, mostly through property taxes, and that's the one that's been allotted for your child if you have a child. Or you can try to send them to an expensive private school, whether it's a Catholic school, military school, madrasa, I guess. I don't know any madrasas around where I live. But if it's a different type of school and it's not funded by the state, you have to pay more to go there. But it's a requirement that your child has to be in school, which I don't think should be a requirement. I think people should be able to choose if they want to go to school or not. If they want to be retards, that's up to them. But so you don't really have a choice in going to school. And like I said, you have those two choices: the public school or the private school. And if you go to the public school, how much freedom does your child have? Well, not very much. The school will have a curriculum. It will set its own requirements for what they want you to learn, that you have to complete. In Illinois, we're the only state that still runs a mandatory gym class every day. I don't think any other state in the union supports such a thing. I don't know why. We're not very healthy in Illinois, let me tell you. But so it's you don't really have much freedom. And again, it's tied to where you live. It reminds me of employer-based health insurance in the sense that where your insurance is tied to where your job is. Your school is tied to where you live, and that makes no sense, because if your school sucks, like in Washington, D.C. or in the Chicago public school system, you're pretty fucked, because if you can't afford to go to the private school, then you're stuck in the shit school, and the state really doesn't care. That's the school they've allotted for you. So what is it? So what are these vouchers then, and why are people so afraid of these vouchers? Well, essentially what a voucher is it states that fund for every student, a certain amount of tax dollars is allotted to the school that is usually paid through property taxes, and then you get federal funding and state funding for them. And most states will spend on average about $6,000 to $10,000 per student to be educated. Okay, what this essentially states that instead of just giving that money to the school and saying, here's $7,000, educate the student, what would happen is you would get a check from the state and with your name on it, or with your child's name on it, and they would essentially say, look, here's the money. This is going to cover how much it takes the public school to educate you. It's also now going to probably come close to covering how much a private school would take to educate you. So the choice is yours. Now, instead of going to the school that you're simply closest to, here's your check. As long as your child is enrolled in school, you can choose where they go. Okay? And this creates a certain amount of competition. Now, it's not true competition, or I'd say at least it's closer competition, like what you might get with the beloved healthcare public option, in the sense that the subsidies aren't automatically going to the government. The subsidies are going to you. Okay, they're going to you, and then you can choose if you want to give them to the government or give them to the private enterprise. And now you actually have a choice. And if people don't want the government, then the government would have to wither and die or deficit spend, which it probably would do. But it would have to make the government wouldn't just be around and unabashed. It would have to create an incentive for students to go there. Okay, so your child would say, okay, if I want to go to the public high school, then I'll go to the public high school. But if I want to go to the Catholic school or the military school, because I think they'll give me a better educational experience, um, then they can choose not to go to the public school, okay? And this does a couple of things. Number one, it definitely encourages the public school to put out a better product. That means teaching students better, okay? I'm sure we've all had the high school teachers that we could tell are just, padding their pension plan and waiting for the magic year when they can retire, when the state won't put any more money into their pension plan. Or we'll get the wacky teacher that wants to jam his political views down your throat, whether you're Republican, conservative, liberal, Democrat, socialist, whatever. You always have that teacher that you just don't agree with. These people pretty much can say whatever they want, and when they know they're going to have a certain amount of students in their classroom every year because the students have to go to school, they don't have to worry about job security. But now all of a sudden, if they know that the students can choose the private school, now these people really have to be good teachers. And if they don't do well, the school has an incentive to really try to fire them and get teachers in there to teach students better so that the school doesn't go under. Okay? It also allows for students to go to schools that the curriculum helps them better. I mean, there are specialty schools out there. There are magnet schools, or even technology-based schools where students, if they're interested in technology, they're interested in other subjects that cater to them. Now they have an education that can cater to them and get them really interested in what they want to do for a living, and they're better off than sitting in the school where they're learning about shit they don't care about. And it's not helpful for anyone, and the government is pretty much throwing money out the window, but the government does that a lot anyway, so what a big surprise. That's essentially what the voucher system is. Now, what are the evils of the voucher system? Well, the evils of the voucher system come essentially from teachers' unions. Okay, those beloved teachers' unions that will cut your fucking throat if you ever try to mention vouchers or take away any of the benefits that teachers get. Teachers' unions do not like vouchers because they don't want to compete with private industry, and that's not a big surprise. But teachers. Like I said, teachers in most states have pretty good benefits. They make a very good living, at least in Illinois they do. They make a very good living. They get a pension, they get health insurance, they get tenure after a certain amount of time, which means they can't be fired unless they commit a crime or molest a student. And they have very good job security that's really unrivaled in any other field. And so teachers don't want to give this up, obviously, and the unions don't want to give it up. And and I'm going to put out another video on unions, but don't think for a second that unions exist to make sure your children get a better educational experience. They exist to protect the jobs of teachers. Many people have stated this. Steve Jobs is actually one of the biggest opponents of teachers unions, and I applaud him for that because he's right that they're completely evil. But teachers unions are not good, and teachers unions don't like vouchers because it encourages the teachers to actually have to try more, and if the teachers aren't doing very well, then the public schools can fail, and then the teachers unions are out of a job. Okay, so this is the argument against the voucher system. Okay, and I think it's a hysterical argument. I think that any child has the right to choose what school they want to go to, if they want to commute or not. And I for instance, go to the University of Illinois at Chicago, and I live in a town called Batavia in Illinois, and there are much closer schools to me than the University of Illinois at Chicago. There's Northern Illinois University, there is North Central, there is Benedictine. There's definitely some closer colleges to where I live than UIC, but I commute into UIC because obviously there's something about the school that I like, and I'm willing to get on the train every fucking day and go to my school. So, if people are willing to commute and people want to go to that better school because they believe they're getting something out of it, then my question, of course, is, well, why does the state not want you to do this? Because the state has an incentive to keep that monopoly on education, because they don't want to give in to the teachers' unions. They don't want to give in to the special interests that want to use the state for their own whim, and everyone wants to use the state for their own whim. We get that all the time. The law perverted, the law misused, as Frederick Bassat would say. So this is essentially the idea behind school vouchers, that people don't understand them, and why I think wholeheartedly, if we're going to have education run by the government, school vouchers should 100% be part of the plan and be given to students so they can choose. But of course, this is the one area where socialists don't really support it because they think it hurts the unions and it hurts the public schools, and they don't understand economics anyway, so why try explaining to them? But anyway, this is essentially what a school voucher is. And again, it's not a true Austrian idea, but I think that as long as education is run by the state, that they have to be a component of state-based education. So yeah, this is school vouchers.